to look at, all right? Uh, so I'm trying to explain this on an Excel sheet. We have a presentation, but for people who have already come and people who are there, I'm just going to give you a little overview about what we are trying to understand. Now there are, before we go in and try to understand BW and HANA, we basically have to understand the ERP systems. ERP is Enterprise Resource Planning, and most of you would have heard that term ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning. If you consider an industry, or if you consider something like an office, you will find that there will be a lot of functions that happen within the industry, all right? And within these functions, you will have something like something relating to finance, something relating to sales, something relating to material, and then you have inventory, and you'd have HR, paying salaries and all that, your quality. Yeah. So some of the main functions that are there in the enterprise are these, all right? Now what happened previously was each of these functions that were handled, these are sometimes called as modules, each of these functional areas would have their own specific tool. So let's say for finance you might have something relating to Oracle Finance, or for HR you might have PeopleSoft, or for sales you might have something else. Now these tools are basically help you with your daily transactions, and these daily transactions Venkat. Hi Venkat.
Hi, yes, this is Venkat, Gopal, and Sayed. So this is a demo class, or?
This is not a demo class. This is the first session, but some of them have not come for the demonstration as well. I'm just taking them through to understand what exactly we're trying to deal in these sessions. All right?
Today the first session?
Yeah, this is the first session. You've been there for the demo session, right?
Yes, we were, yes.
All right. So we're just going through a little bit of that again. All right. So if you've already attended, just be a little patient. All right. All right.
What's his name?
All right, guys. So here you have different areas within the enterprise. You have finance, you have sales, and each of these areas will be handled, let's say, by a different tool specifically, and the data that is collected is what we want to analyze. Okay, so from finance you might have some data, from sales you might have some data, from from HR, from QA. But what happens is, to all this data, you want all of this data to be connected, because there will be a decision maker, and he is going to look at the data, and based on that he's going to suggest strategy. Okay, whether we're making profits, whether we're making losses, all that we work for is that we make some money and we make profits. All right, so we want to make sure that we are in the right strategy. And so bringing data from individual tools which are specific for these individual functional areas gets a little difficult to reorganize all of that, and that to make sense to the decision maker is a little bit of a challenge. So they came up with something called as an enterprise resource planning system, basically aimed at integrating all of these different areas that are there in an enterprise. And what we are trying to do within the SAP, which is one of the products of ERP, one of the leading products that are used for ERP solution is SAP. It has two major systems, all right? One is you have the OLTP system, and the other one is the OLAP system. So what is OLTP? OLTP stands for Online Transaction Processing System. OLAP stands for Online Analytical Processing System. Okay. In the OLTP system, the SAP solution is called as ECC, Enterprise Central Component. Okay. This is ECC system, and this is called as enterprise central component. Previously this was called as R3, real-time 3-tier architecture, but now the naming is changed. It is called as ECC, and the OLAP system, the online analytical processing system, is called as the BW system, or business warehousing system. Okay. So each of them have different versions. ECC 5 was there, then you have ECC 6, which is the latest. BW has gone through a lot of changes. BW 3.5, 7.0, 7.1, 7.3. Now we have BW 7.4, and that's what we're going to look through in these trainings. Now OLTP is something that will hold the transaction data. OLAP system is basically the one which analyzes the data. Okay, why are we not using data from the OLTP system is because over and above daily transactions that we are trying to do, we want to also handle analytics, and ECC is not optimized to handle analytics on the same system where business transactions are happening. So if you try to go ahead and over and above directly handling your daily transactions, if you are trying to do analytics, that might slow the system not just for you but everybody on the who's using this ECC system, and this might slow down the process of business. We don't want to do that, and so SAP came up with a solution for analytics, and that was BW. So BW is the process where you're trying to analyze data that is actually generated from the ECC system. But how do you do it? You will have to use the data from ECC. So the process was to move all of this data from ECC as batch data into the BW environment, and this process is basically called as extraction. All right, or we can call this as ETL. Extraction is majorly the term that is given. We're trying to load that data into BW. Okay, so let's say you have sales data, you have finance data, because there are multiple modules within the ECC system. All right, and each of that data has to be arranged within BW, and you should organize the data well so that when you're trying to handle your reporting, the decision maker is able to look at all of that data together. Okay, based on whether he wants to look at individual data or he wants to look at data together, you will have to have some place to go and consolidate and keep all of that data in an arranged fashion. So within BW, you have a lot of different kinds of objects, starting with the smallest objects called as the info objects, and going to the DSOs and info cubes, virtual providers. You have the info sets, multi-providers, all of this. Okay, so based on what kind of data you're trying to report, each of them is loaded into a specific set of data. You have master data coming through, you have transaction data coming through, and these are loaded into these objects. Alright, you need to understand these objects really well to understand what kind of data should be loaded. Alright, because you are looking at two things. It's not small hundreds of records coming through, you have millions of rows of data coming through into the BW system. So that data should be loaded really quick, and when you run your reports, even data should be moved from these objects into the report also very quick. So you need to understand the schemas on which they are built, the underlying schema that is used for these objects. All right. So you have one of the main schemas, that is extended star schema, that is used in BW. So we'll try to understand what the extended star schema is, what is star schema, what is the advantage of extended star schema over star schema. Alright, what is multidimensional modeling? So that is the process where we deal with modeling. Okay. And then on top of BW, since you this whatever you do here is in the background, but what you do on top of BW, which is the reporting front. Okay, this is where all your end users are going to look at the data. Your decision maker, your end users are all going to use this data that you've organized here. And the reporting tool that is used by BW, the proprietary reporting tool that is used by BW, is called as Business Explorer. Okay, or we call it in short as BEX. It has a suite of different tools like Business Explorer and then analysis, and then so you have different kinds of reporting tools or within BEX itself. So we're going to look at those reporting tools. Okay. Now here, the only disadvantage that you have with BW is after all your daily transactions happen in the ECC system at the end of the day from let's say 8 p.m. you start moving the data from ECC into the BW environment, and once this starts at around 8 p.m. So the data that you are sending from ECC into BW is a little old. It is not data that is real time. You are sending the data which is a little old. Okay, and from 8 p.m. till the next day morning you will be loading data into BW. The person who comes next day then can look at reports, and then those reports are for the reports that of the data that was collected yesterday. Okay, that is not for today. That is basically reports data that was collected yesterday. Now the problem is not all enterprises want to look at yesterday's data, because there is a problem when you're looking at older data, because sometimes you want to take strategic decisions. You're trying to sell a product and you're getting losses. You want to come up with a different strategy as it happens. You don't want to wait till you lose $1 million and look at it the next day and then try to go and come up with a solution. If you're losing some money, or if you're losing something and then you understand that this process is not working, you want to take immediate steps to go ahead and counter that. All right, which means that you want to look at the data as it is happening. Okay, and BW doesn't have the process to go ahead and process data at real time. So SAP introduced another system called as the SAP HANA box. Okay, the SAP HANA basically is a real-time technology that is used as an intermediate to bridge the OLTP and the OLAP systems. Okay, so you have the SAP HANA box, which is going to bridge the ECC and the BW system. There are two major solutions for SAP HANA. One is where SAP HANA is used as an appliance. Okay, the second one is where SAP HANA is used as a database. Okay. Now BW or ECC or any other application that we're using in SAP or is a three-tier architecture, and you have a presentation layer, an application layer, and you have a database layer. And majority of times the database that is used is Oracle database or SQL database. And so what happens is when you are trying to create your models on top of the application, data is stored in the underlying database. Let's say Oracle is the database that you're using. What SAP intends to do is they want to go ahead and replace Oracle as a database. So they came up with a solution, and that is the SAP HANA database. The SAP HANA database is a hybrid database where you are not storing data on a hard disk, but you are trying to do all your calculation in memory. Alright, it has something called as the in-memory concept, where data is not stored on the hard drive, but data is stored directly on the RAM. Alright, when data is stored on the RAM, then this data is available at extremely fast levels, and so you can process the data very quickly. But SAP HANA intrinsically is a database. The appliance is a combination of hardware and software. Okay, the hardware is provided by SAP's partner vendors like Cisco, IBM, Dell, all right, and all of these basically provide the hardware for it, whereas the software is provided by SAP. And the software that we will be talking is SAP HANA Studio. Okay. Now what we're trying to learn in this course is we're trying to learn about BW, we're trying to learn about HANA, and then we will try to bring in a solution which is a combination of both, which is called BW on top of HANA. Okay. Now HANA as a database is still an in-memory database. All right. It does not save data onto the hard drive, but it stores data onto the main memory, which is the RAM. There are a few features that are very different from existing databases, like you have storages called as column storages. The column storages allow you to go ahead and read data at extreme speeds using SAP HANA. It also has another copy of the data in row store format, basically to handle inserts, updates, and deletes. So your data is available in two instances. One is row stores and column stores, and data is, when you are looking for a report, your data is available at real time very quickly, and at the same time, in case you want to handle inserts and deletes, those are handled on the row store instance. So all of that can happen really quick. The advantage of SAP HANA is the entire processing calculation is pushed down onto the database than actually bringing it to the application layer. So when you're on an application layer, something like BW, what happens is you need, let's say somebody fires a query from the Business Explorer. Here you will have to first check on that data or on that query, what is the query, and based on where that data is, you will have to fetch that data to the application layer. You have to do your calculations, and then that result of it is sent to the reporting tool, where the end user is able to look at the result. But because you're having huge amounts of data and you have multiple layering of data here, looking at a report takes a little time, and then you might not have the best possible speed when it comes to reporting. It is able to deliver reports, but sometimes it is not really fast. So in that context, what they have come up with is, why can't we use SAP HANA database as an underlying database for BW? Okay, so there are scenarios where a company will have both HANA and BW running. HANA as an appliance and also HANA as a database. You might have a BW system. And in those scenarios, what is happening is the existing database, which is Oracle, is replaced by the HANA database. And to accommodate the basic properties of HANA, like HANA will only handle star schema, not extended star schema. Alright, the database basically handles only star schema. So the application has been changed a little bit to accommodate star schema instead of extended star schema. The different objects that are here, like info cubes and DSOs, have been improved to call them as in-memory databases, or HANA improvised data stores. Alright, so we're going to use these info cubes and DSOs, which basically use data from the HANA database, and they have a few changes from the existing BW layering. Alright, so we'll look at that. In today's session, what we are going to look at is, we're going to look at the interface of BW, and we're going to look at the interface of HANA. Alright, and we'll understand what are the common features between BW and HANA, and how it is improved. Now, if you go on to the, once you register, you will be given an IP that through which you can connect to a remote system, And on the remote system you have something called as an SAP logon pad. So here you find the SAP logon pad. When you click on the SAP logon pad, you have the different systems that you can use in SAP listed down here. You have BW 7.4, you have BW on HANA, you have ECC system and the LT server. I'm going to log into the BW 7.4 system. So when I double click on the BW 7.4 system, it will go ahead and connect to the application, and the interface basically asks me to authenticate onto it before I log into it. I need to give a username, which is my username, and my password. Each of you will be given your own password, so you can keep that part so that it is only authenticated by you. So once you enter, this is the screen that I will be taken to SAP Easy Access. Okay, SAP Easy Access is the first screen that appears when you actually log into the application. But this is not the screen that we want to. SAP always talks like a dialogue. Alright, so this area is where you enter the transaction codes. A transaction code is a 4-digit alphanumeric uh, characters that you enter here in the context menu, and the system will respond with a screen. You go ahead and type RSA1, the system will show another screen. If I go and type SC11, the system will show another screen. Alright, so based on the transaction code that you go ahead and give, you will have the screens that will be popped up, and this is more like a dialogue. So once you enter the data, they will be stored in the background tables. So here what I'm going to do is, within the BW environment, I'm going and typing one of the most important transaction codes for BW is typed as RSA1. Alright, it could be in lowercase or it could be in uppercase. So once you go ahead and type that in, you could go ahead and press enter. This will take you to the data warehousing workbench, and we're going straight into the modeling section. Now if you guys have a little understanding of BW, that is fine. If you don't, we will still be dealing with this. So here onto the left in the interface, you have basically these yellowish colored tabs in here. The first tab is called modeling. This is where we have entered directly, and within modeling you have a lot of sub objects in here, like you have history, data flows, info provider, info objects, info sources, data sources, source systems, open hub destinations, and all of these are available in here. If you go to the next step, you have administration. Likewise, you have transport, connection, documents, BI content, translation, and metadata repository. These are the functional areas that you can go ahead and use within the BW environment. Each of these tabs have a sub area under it, and we're going to use that to basically create newer objects or administer newer objects or objects that needs monitoring, or if you want to move it across a landscape. So these are what we have. Majority of our training will be hovering around this area, which is basically the modeling section. You have entered into the data warehousing workbench, in that specifically the modeling section. What you have in this section is basically, if you look at to the right, this is your work area, and within the work area you find these green diamond like things. Alright, this is specific name space that you create for yourself. In the BW terminology, this is called as an info area. An info area is an organized way of how you can keep all your objects together. So let's say you're working on some sales data, you can create your sales folder, and then, or you call it as info area, and you can create your objects in there. So it's more like a folder that you have on your system that is specific to a certain set of data. Alright, so you can create your own info area and organize your data. Here you understand the concept of tables, right? So here if I go in, the reason why on an Excel sheet you have A, B, C, D, E, F and all of these are for referencing. It is an easier way to tell that, okay, on the grid D12 you find 8 p.m. Alright, so or if you want to go in here, L and 12, you understand these multi-providers. So it's an easier way of referencing data. Now in a similar fashion, you have something called as a table that we can define, and the table has columns. Okay, so you can say customer number and material number, price, quantity. Alright, what are all of these? These are column names, and based on the column names you will be giving the data inside here. Okay, customer number, material number, price, quantity, and all of these. This is the easiest way how we can store data. Okay, and you will find that each of these are called as a field. So to identify your data you need a field. Within BW a similar structure can be created. You will have a different naming that we will be using. It could be called, it is not called a table, but you have different terminology like info cubes and DSOs and multi-providers and bigger structures. Alright. But the objects which are related to fields, now fields are the smallest objects within a normal RDBMS, and these are the ones that will hold data. And just like how you have the fields, you have something called as info objects within BW. Info objects. Now the example that I gave here basically consists of customer number and material number. You have price, quantity, amount, and all of these. Now you know that customer number and material number could be something like you have C001 and let's say M001. But your price, quantity, and amount will always be in numerics. It could be decimals. You might have price is 100, number of quantities 2. So total amount is something like 200. So this is all numbers. And all the time what we are dealing with is trying to analyze these numbers. Okay. We want to know whether we made profits, we want to know whether we made losses, we want to know how to improve these numbers, how to make our profits bigger, how do you capture market. So we're always worried about that. Okay. But on the other hand, whenever we get this information based on transactions that we do. When a customer comes into a shop and he buys a material M001, he is paying $100, quantity is 2 and total amount is $200 that he has to pay. So you understand that this is a real transaction that has happened. And this data that you call here is referential data. So this is the referential data or master data. And so master data is one, transaction data is what you have here, and it's all numerics. So a similar concept within BW is if you have info objects, they are divided into two types. One is called as characteristic info objects. The other one is called as key figure info objects. What are characteristic info objects? Just like how you have customer number and material number, these are a way of referencing, and you call these as more like dimensions. You can analyze data from a customer perspective, you can analyze data from a material perspective. So this will give you a dimensional concept. Okay, and within BW as well you have this concept, and so you have characteristics and key figures. Characteristics are nothing but what you have here. These are basically used for on what basis you are trying to analyze data. Alright, and these are called as let's say dimensions. Okay, you want to analyze data from a customer perspective, from a material perspective, from a business area perspective, from a profit center perspective. So you want to analyze data. That is basically characteristics. Key figures are nothing but the ones that will hold all your numeric data. Okay, these are called as measures. Here they're called as key figures. So the basic division are two. So if you create a table, or a table basically will hold physical data as a structure, but basically it is made up of these column names or fields, we call them as. If you are looking at a view is basically a combination of 2 or 3 tables. It basically has only a structure. right? But the arrangement of the fields only again. So within BW also, you have views, you have uh, info objects, you have arrangement of data, and all of these are there. But the most intrinsic objects everywhere are nothing but your info objects. The info objects that are arranged at a different pattern in the form of a schema will give rise to bigger objects like info cubes and DSOs. And these are arranged in the form of a schema, usually the extended star schema or sometimes star schema also. And so we are trying to understand how these will work. Okay, how this schema or how these objects will allow you to go ahead and analyze data and analyze it in a way that you are able to help the decision maker make better decisions and strategy. So this is what we will be looking through within the BW environment. Now here in the BW area, the info area, each of these diamonds is called as an info area, and under that you can create a lot of different objects. If you right click on any of the info areas, you will find all of these objects that you can create here. You can create an info area under an info area, an info queue, a data store object, a multi-provider, a visual provider, info set, hybrid provider, aggregation, composite provider, and then you can insert characteristic as an info provider. So all of these objects can be created here under your info area. Each of these info area has the ability to create all of these objects. Now you need to load data, related data into each of these objects, and so you have these other components also in here. The first thing that you want to know is what are the systems that can connect to a BW environment. Alright, so there are a whole bunch of systems that are able to connect to the BW environment. You have data coming in from other BW systems, BPC systems, you have data coming in from ECC systems, you have data coming in from flat files, you have data coming from third-party tools like data services, you have data coming from external systems, you have data coming from database connections, you have data coming from UD Connect or Universal Data Connect, web services. So it basically caters to all kinds of systems. So what it proves is that BW is not a system that is dependent only on ECC. BW is a standalone system which can bring in data from any transaction system. It could be from a BW environment, it could be data brought from SAP, it could be data brought from Oracle, it could be data brought from HANA or any other system. Okay. Now BW 7.4 is a system that is basically built to accommodate HANA. HANA as a database. You have a non-HANA version as well, and majority of times all the features that you see in here will be best used when you have BW on the HANA database. Okay, so all of these are different sources that you could use for bringing in data. Once you have the sources, let's say here RSA1, once you have the sources, then you need to channelize that source. So let's say you have an ECC source, okay, from where you're bringing in data. But you want to make sure that all your data is specifically brought in here. You want to bring your sales data, you want to bring in your material data, inventory data, all of this you want to go and arrange it in a way that you can go ahead and use that. So you have accounting data, you have mass data, transaction data, you have specifics to here you have beverages, IS. So there are multiple areas from where you would be bringing in data. So there are not a lot of differences between 7.3 and 7.4, but majority of the 7.4 functions are available in 7.3 itself. But this is aimed at with the concept that BW is going to be built on top of the HANA database. That is the main reason why we have BW 7.4. This is very tightly integrated with HANA, and you have features like composite providers and stuff where you can go ahead and link data with the HANA box. You can bring in the objects directly from HANA into the BW environment, and then you can start creating these objects on top of the HANA, on top of the BW environment itself. The environment allows you to go ahead and move objects between BW into HANA Studio and from HANA Studio into BW as well. So a very tight integration here. We will be looking at all of those scenarios as we go along. Now here, data sources, info objects, info providers. These are some of the main objects that are there under the modeling section. Once you understand the source system, data is arranged in a better perspective because all data is not stored in one single table. Let's say you're talking about sales. All the sales data is not stored in one table. It is normalized. So you have header data, you have items data, item overview data, you have schedule line data, all of them stored in separate tables, sometimes maybe in one table, sometimes might be in multiple tables. And for that, what the system or SAP has understood is, okay, usually everybody uses this data, but we need to go ahead and create something called as extractors. Alright, to pump out data from ECC into BW systems, they have something called as extractors, and these extractors are imported into the BW environment, and you can create data sources and you can run them so that data is pumped out from the ECC system and it is moved into the info provider level. So these are the data sources that you can use just to make sure that the structure of data that is going to come into BW is informed. You create data sources and which will enable you to create something called as persistent staging area on my BW environment. PSA is more like a gateway for BW before data enters into BW. Now, moving on from the modeling section, now here you have a lot of different models. Info cubes are the central comp or central and most important feature of the BW, and this is designed on the extended star schema. But you have a lot of other objects as well. We'll talk about how this modeling is done as we go along. So here, apart from modeling, you have the administration section where once you have loaded or once you are trying to build the model, you will have to load data into it. You want to automate this entire process, all right? And if you want to automate this entire process, there should be something like a workflow or something like a sequence of events that need to go ahead and run through. And for that, you have process chains. Let's say you have to monitor the data that is going. You're on a support project, and you want to. You are in charge of monitoring all the data that is being loaded into the BW environment. In case there is a failure, you have to correct that data and you have to reload it. In case there is a model that is created, it needs to be extended so that it can accommodate one more field. In that sense, you need to go and do remodeling. If you want to have an object that is migrated from 3.5 version to 7.3 or 7.4, you need to handle the migration of the objects. So all of these are handled here in the administration, where individually each of these objects are also available, but they're all combined here in the administration section so that you can handle all the administration related work under this tab. Like any other system, you have the transport connection, and here you will be moving. You have a landscape within BW where you have the development, the quality, and the production systems, and you will need to move data from one system to the other once you have finished creating and you want to use these objects within quality and production. In that scenario, you have the option to go ahead and move these objects or transport these objects into different landscapes, and for that you have the transport option. So the transport connection allows you to group, or you can send it individually as well, objects from one landscape to the other. You have documents where you can store all your functional and technical documents of objects that you have created. Business content is one of the most important areas because you will find here a lot of pre-built solutions here. Okay, SAP has been around for more than a couple of decades, and they have done implementation in almost every vertic vertical possible. And so the best practices of those implementations are packaged here under business content. So in case you want to go ahead and use business content, you can get into this tab, which is business content, and you can use the objects from here. Alright, you can directly activate the objects and they'll be available in your development environment and you can start using them. You can even customize them with the small changes that you need to make to suit your particular business flow. Alright, you can take copies of them. All of that can be used with the business content. It improves the speed of your implementation, allows you to have a better picture of how the design is done for the objects. You have translation and also metadata repository, basically telling how each of the objects is created when and by whom. So this is the interface and we will be pacing it such a way that we'll try to understand BW first, then we'll try to understand HANA, then we'll try to bring the concepts from both of them, and you will be looking at BW on top of HANA. Okay, so this is the interface for BW. Our majority of all of our things that we do within BW are around the data warehousing workbench only. Apart from this, all of these are again stored in the form of tables. The data are stored in the form of tables, and these you can find in something called as the ABAP dictionary. So you have the transaction SC11, and here if you go in, you have all the tables and the views, data types, all that you can create, all for the objects that you have created, the underlying databases and all of that you can see in that particular transaction code SC11. Now this is the basic interface for BW. Alright, I have not got into complete detail of any other tabs, but just giving you a picture of what these tabs are for. On a similar front, if you go into the Start menu, you will find that under All Programs, you have SAP HANA, and SAP HANA, the interface is called as the SAP HANA Studio. The SAP HANA Studio allows you to use this interface for handling almost every operation that can be done on the SAP HANA appliance. Alright, so if you go in here, the interface basically asks you to create a connection to the actual HANA database and the appliance. So when you right click on this navigational area, you can click on log on. You can give in the credentials, and this will enable the system. So you have a connection in here just to make sure all of these tabs are enabled. You can select. You can have multiple systems, HANA systems that are connected here on the studio. You basically have four major tabs that are here: catalog, content, provisioning, and security. Okay, the interface basically has these four tabs. Okay, and each of these screens that you see, you can call them as a perspective. Alright, so this is the modeling perspective from HANA. You have other perspectives also. So if you look at it, you have the administrative perspective, you have Java perspective, you have modeling perspective, planning perspective. So all of these are available. Just like how you open Internet Explorer, you can click on a particular tab and it will open in a separate tab here. Okay. The basic contents of the HANA interface is just like how you're using a Microsoft SQL Studio. If you have logged into that or used database, you will easily understand how this is placed. When you open the catalog, you will find that you have a lot of schemas in here. When you use Oracle, you will find that there will be schemas you can create and start using the data specific to the schema. Here also within HANA, you can create your own schema, and the schema will have data that you could use, tables in here, and you can use all the data loaded into these schemas, and then you can use the data from here. To keep the data specific and distinct from other data that is collected, you have created schemas. Now HANA by itself is a database, and so the data that is collected, you want to keep it specific according to schema. You might have brought in data from an ECC system, so you have an ECC data that is defined here. Alright. You might have brought in data from data services, so you have BODS in here. Okay. So based on how data is actually brought in, to keep it distinct, you have created the schemas, and you can specifically store the data in these schemas. Okay. Now I've told you that HANA is a database, so it cannot generate data by itself. Any database that is used like Oracle or SQL or anything, it cannot generate data by itself. You will have to provide it with some data. Your application is in the front. When the application handles the entries, that entries are stored in the underlying database. On a similar fashion, here also, data is not generated by itself. You will have to generate data, and then you will also have to make sure that data is stored in the right models. So here, once you define the schemas, that is the only layer in which data is stored, and here the data is stored in row stores and column stores. Alright. Once data is stored in there, then you want to go ahead and model that data. Just like how you have created info cubes and DSOs and info objects within BW, a similar format of how you can create objects within BW also exists. So here, if you look at this particular screen, you can see that within the modeler section you have packages, which basically allow you to create info areas, or you can create your own namespaces using the package. So if I open the content, you will find that I have a whole bunch of different packages that we could create. This is nothing but your, if you right click on it and say new, you can create a new package. This will be your namespace that you have created to organize all your different objects that you create under it. You can create package under package and all that, but basically a package is used for organizing data to have all the objects at one specific package. Once you create a package, if you right click on the package, it allows you to create a lot of different sub objects. The models that you create within SAP HANA are attribute view, analytic view, calculation view. These three are the main models that we use. Over and above, if you want to derive data from a specific, let's say, a procedure, or in case you want to use something called as decision tables, then over and above these three objects, you can use procedures and decision tables as well. Okay. You also have privileges that you can set on the data that you have within HANA, so that only a specific set of people have the access into that data. Okay. So the major difference between a BW and a HANA object is, in BW data is stored in multiple areas, and then that data is used when you're trying to report. You have different layers, and in each layer data is stored separately. It is not like you have one set of data here in the database and the models basically are like views. That is the scenario that you have in HANA. In HANA, you have data loaded only at the catalog level. So this is the data that is loaded here, and from the remaining objects, whether you create attribute view or analytic view or calculation view, these are all views. A view does not hold any data. It will only hold the structure of the data that you want to use. So these views do not really hold data, and they will only, you will be only able to see the data at runtime. Okay. The data speed is extremely fast because you are trying to use it on the RAM and not on the hard disk. Alright, the main memory data is being used. So we will try to understand the architecture of SAP HANA as we go along. We will see how to create these objects, and how to move objects from BW into HANA and from HANA into BW. So if you see this tab in here which says import, you can click on import and go to SAP HANA content. You have an option which says SAP NetWeaver BW models. Alright, and these models can be imported from BW into SAP HANA interface. On a similar front, the models that you have in the SAP HANA box, like the attribute view, your analytic view, your calculation view, can be moved into the BW environment, and you can create objects like composite provider, all right, and transient providers. These can be created within SAP HANA as well. I mean SAP BW as well. There is a process of how you would migrate from using an existing, let's say, a SQL database or Oracle database into HANA database. All right, but majority of responsibility for moving or migrating the database is handled by basis. But the after objects that you need to correct, you need to go ahead and do that using a few transactions. As a developer, we will be responsible for making sure all the objects are optimized for using with SAP HANA database. Alright, so the interface we have looked at basically a little understanding about the interface that we have. One is from a BW perspective, one is from a HANA perspective. But this is just a very small tip of the iceberg. Once we have data and once we are looking at interfaces, then you will find that there are a little similarities between how the BW models are used and how the HANA models are used. The technology that is used is the same. In HANA you have the star schema modeling, whereas in BW you have the extended star schema modeling. And when you're using SAP HANA as an underlying database with the BW application, SAP also will start, or BW will also start using the star schema model and not the extended star schema model. So we'll look at both understanding the extended and also the star schema model so that you will have a better understanding about how the changes will happen when you're using it with HANA database. Okay. So at this point, if you guys have any questions, you could go ahead and ask me. I am ready to take questions. Any questions, guys? Anything relating to HANA or BW or data services or business objects, I'd be able to go ahead and answer your questions. For people who have no idea about SAP, I'll be going a little slow, so don't worry. I'll make sure that all of you understand what exactly we're dealing with and what kind of data that we're using. We'll try to do even extra sessions if you need a little more information and understanding with SAP as well. Hi, Venkat. I've unmuted you.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, we need to understand what is the, I mean, do we have like a functional and technical role separate in BW?
See, BW is a techno-functional area. All right, you will be bringing in data from not one module, you will be bringing in data from multiple modules. It's basically a warehouse, so you have the data coming in from multiple areas. And we are trying to organize that data in here. Okay, so it's more like you don't really need an in-depth functional expertise or understanding. You basically have a set of guidelines based on the data that you're looking at. You can create these objects within the BW environment. When you say technical, there's a lot of coding involved in the technical front. There is not a lot of coding that you would want to do within BW, though there is a little bit of coding involved. That is in cases where you cannot handle anything within the graphical interface. If you want to go ahead and write a routine to handle that, then you might need a little understanding with the ABAP code. But apart from that, it is most of the times an interface and graphical handling through which you can go and do all your mappings and how you can generate your results.
If person don't know ABAP, so is it good to go like in BW?
It is not like if a person is not good with ABAP. See, technical front is more of a lot of coding. You have to have understanding with ABAP and all that. But BW is more a warehouse where you generate models using a graphical interface, and then you will create all of these models. Okay, so there is not a lot of code involved, and if you are writing code, always remember that for every record that is going through that object, the code applies to that object. So it causes a lot of performance issues. So as much as possible, we try not to use code. But if in some scenarios it becomes inevitable for us to use the code as well. All right. But if somebody is able to understand basic of primary keys and foreign keys and relationship between tables, if you have a little idea about warehousing, BW is the best solution and best thing to learn.
It's the same thing for the HANA too?
HANA is a similar component, yes. You don't need a lot of previous understanding. If you have a little warehousing concepts, if you have a little SQL knowledge, it will be a lot of add-on for HANA, and it's something where you can. It's not as in-depth as in BW HANA modeling. It's basically the modeling that you can do at a simpler level. All right.
Okay.
You can complicate it based on the kind of queries and code that you can write in a particular model, but apart from that, the rest of it is all graphically used. All right. The advantage is that it is not for every company to use HANA, but it is for enterprises where people are not able to wait for data to be processed and you want real-time reports to be seen. In that scenario, you would want to use HANA. But if not, there's a lot of BW and more of BW clients than HANA.
So as we are from the functional background from SAP,
Uh-huh.
so what is your suggestion? Mean in the BW, mean we are not going to do much on the coding side. Mean we are okay with that to create modeling data objects. Mean that's fine. We know the key fields, the foreign keys. But do you think we don't need any coding to do our job in the BW as a BW consultant?
See, I'm not saying there will not be any coding at all. There will be coding, but it will be very small. All right. So if you have a little ABAP knowledge, then you can definitely use that within the BW environment. But the amount of coding that you have compared to amount of graphical interface that you use for building an object is more when you have when you're using BW. Your graphical interface and creation of objects is much more in BW than actually using anything relating to ABAP coding. You have coding where you can write it at transformation level. You have coding where you can write it at info object level. You can do all of that. But majority of times you will use the interface only. You will try to find a solution using the interface itself. If it is not possible that way, then you go for the coding level.
Okay.
So one more thing then, what will be the schedule, like 3 days a week? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday?
It's it depends on you. We're looking at 3 to 5 days a week, but depends on how much you guys want to learn over the week and how much time you can allocate for doing training. So if all of you agree on those terms, then we can have it based on that.
Because we three are traveling consultants. We travel Monday to Thursday. So we would like to learn this on our road trip. Like, Monday to Wednesday we want to take
I got it.
So,
yeah, on the weekends you want to be with family and stuff.
Yeah, we'll do some practice or something, some
Right.
other thing.
I'll give you as much time for practice. Definitely, this needs a lot of practice more than anything. So that will be there.
And another thing is, what's your idea about practice? Like, will you give, like, at the end of every session some practice, some exercises to do?
We
or?
have we have a loaded set of exercises. The server access will be given to you. It's a 24/7 server access with BW and HANA and data services business objects integrated, BW on top of HANA as well. So we will go through, so our process of learning will be this. We will start off with BW, and whenever I need to relate something, I will also bring in HANA. But we'll start off with BW. We will make sure that we understand the concepts of BW. We will learn it using CSV files, and we learn it using the transaction system ECC, just like in real time. Then we will go ahead and look at HANA, and then we will apply both HANA and BW on top of HANA. All right?
Okay. And you talked about ECC a lot today. So what about CRM? Like, is it pretty much same thing like ECC?
It's not pretty much the same thing. The data allocation that you have in CRM is a little different. ECC and CRM are a different set of products. ECC is mainly targeted at transaction systems and transaction data. CRM is always customer related data that you're using in here. You have integration between BW and CRM systems, and where you can move data from CRM into BW as well.
But the concept is same, right? Like, you know,
the concept is same. The whole point of BW or warehousing is how you're going to organize and arrange your data.
the only
that
the
is
info cubes and all those things are different for the CRM.
exactly. Yeah. Because your data is a little different in CRM, the way of how you organize the data in BW will be a little different. So
yeah.
So I can see like customer relationship management here as an info provider. So it's just a different info provider for every solution, right?
exactly. So you have a lot of different info areas specific to the functional domain that it is worked on. You have business content where you will be usually bringing all of this from. When you actually look at it as a new system, you will not find all of this. But based on what models that you're going to create within your enterprise, you will be importing them from business content. Or if you have functional or domain experience, you will start creating these objects on your own. All right?
Okay. Yep.
Hey Pramod, sorry keeping you on wait. I see a question. Maybe you know how many HANA implementations you have done. I've done 2 implementations, one for a UK client and one for a US client. I'm working on the US client right now. Go ahead. You have a question?
So the Pramod who is in the line, is he also agreed for Monday to Wednesday, or what's his thoughts?
We will talk to them. We will talk with them, and then we'll agree on whether 3 days or if you want maximum of 4 days. One day, once you guys, all of you reach homes, probably if you can spend an hour or hour and a half.
Yeah, initially, like, you know, let's go with the 3. Then, like, you know, we can go ahead with, like, you know, once we are feel comfortable, then we can.
Sure. All right.
One more thing. In the industry, people talk about HANA and cloud and all this. Is it the same thing, what we're doing?
See, a cloud is always a way of how you are keeping it aloof, not having to use it from a particular server. You can use it from a cloud. You basically are able to use it from anywhere. So that's the concept of cloud. So it's just that your server is somewhere else, and you're going to use that data from there. So the concept is
Hardware will change.
Hosting by somebody, and you can access it.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Pramod, there are a lot of objects that we have created within HANA. We have started with COPA, we have moved sales, and we have moved financial data into SAP HANA implementation. There are a lot of challenges that we face when we are trying to bring in data, because when you're dealing with HANA, what we're dealing is we're not bringing the entire set of data, like entire set of tables from ECC into HANA. Specific to what kind of data that we want to report on real time, those specific tables that we want to bring in. Let's say I'm trying to bring in data from ECC. My ECC system has all of these modules designed. Okay, if I try to go ahead and create a sales order, I'll have a few tables into which my data goes automatically. Whereas if I want to create that same, if I want to generate a report on open sales orders, so what I'll have to do is I'll have to make use of all of these tables that are there. When I move my tables into the SAP HANA box, I need to make sure that I understand what are the tables that are there in ECC, what kind of relationships that I'm going to hold, because when I move the tables from ECC into HANA, these tables are brought in as individual tables and not with the relation. So we need to relate these tables, and then we need to go ahead and define how these table data needs to be stored and how we can build models on top of this. All right. So the basic challenge underlines that you have is, if the same concept is being used in ECC, how do you replicate that concept onto the SAP HANA system? You have to implement the same logic that is there, that is generating a report in ECC. That logic has to be underlined into SAP HANA. It could be sometimes easily done using a graphical mode. Sometimes it is not actually easy to handle that on a graphical level. So if you're using calculation views, you will have to write a lot of code sometimes to get that result. All right, that result might not be got directly. It has to go through a functional module, and you have to understand what the functional module is being done, and then you have to write the code relating to that. We've done a lot of modeling within SAP HANA. So there are different challenges. It's not that there is one specific challenge that is most challenging. It's a thing that we encounter on an everyday perspective. Can we do reporting on HANA data? There's this question from Vinay. Yes, we have reporting that we can do on HANA. Just that HANA appliance does not have a proprietary reporting tool. What we use is usually a business objects suite of reporting tools on top of HANA. Okay, and these reporting tools will either bring in or will be connected directly to the HANA database, or you have some kind of a semantic layer like a universe on top of HANA, and that is how you can generate reports on top of these. All right, so we can go ahead and do reporting on top of it. There are a lot of reporting tools. You can use Crystal, you can use Excelsius, you can use Analysis, you can use Lumira or Visual Intelligence, then you can use even Excel. So all of these are reporting tools that can be used on top of SAP HANA box. The SAP HANA is a sidecar implementation, that is true. Vinay, I'm sorry, I've just unmuted you. You have a question?
Oh, okay. Okay, that's the same one. Can you do reporting on HANA data? Okay, it's clear.
Oh.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Hey, Pawan.
Hi. Actually, I missed part of the initial introduction, so I was just thinking, would there be a kind of
The recorded session
recording
will
that
be
would
sent to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
So
what,
I believe you
I
put in
missed
the
a part
right
of
email.
it. Sorry?
You put in the right
I have
email,
put in the
right?
right email. Yes, I have put in the right email, and so I just thought, I missed the first few minutes of the actual introduction, so I was like, as a kind of an fix to understand the thing, and
Sure.
yeah, but
The recording
thanks,
will be
Manuel.
sent to you.
It's been really good the way you're trying to go through. So yeah, I'd like that. Thanks.
Thanks, Pawan. The recorded session will be sent to you to your emails. It will be uploaded as a link. You guys can download that. For a few or first couple of sessions, you might not be given organizer access, so just be a little patient. In case you have any questions, you can ask me. through the chat, and then I can either unmute you to ask a question, or I can reply it on the chat, or I can read your question aloud and then answer that. But after a couple of sessions, you will be given the organizer access. All of you will be given the access to record your own sessions, all right? And you can unmute or mute yourself whenever you want. So, so we'll have sessions at the same time, and then we'll take a poll on if we can do three days a week, or whether we want to do 4 days a week from all of you, and then we'll decide on how our schedule is going to be like. All right.
What's your proposition, Emmanuel? What was your proposition initially? 3 days.
See, what we have done prior is we've done 5 days a week. We've done it only on weekends, because it depends on the set of people who want to learn. All right. Some of them are able to grasp fast. Some of them are not able to. Yeah, and then sometimes 5 days a week becomes a little too much, because we're looking at 1.5 hours to 2 hours every day. All right, and people who are working sometimes might not have enough time to look through what all we have covered in a session. When you listen, it's all fine. It's like a story. When you actually come to the system is where you have all the pain, right? So unless you do something on the system, you cannot say that you're thorough with the concept. So we need to give time for all of you to even practice. So that's why I usually make sure that you guys do it on the weekends, or 3 days. If Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are open for you to go ahead and practice. I'm thinking 3 or 4 days a week will be a good thing. The other thing is, if you're looking at 3 days, and sometimes there are holidays in between, so we'll be doing pretty less, and we lose connectivity between sessions. Okay, that is another thing that we will also have to be careful not to be complacent, and so we'll organize it in such a way. I will speak to all of you, and then we'll come to a consensus if you want to do it a 3-day or a maximum of 4 days a week.
Okay, a question here again. Okay, about me, I was working as a data warehouse consultant myself on SQL Server and TM1 and other application. So I wanted to know, like, how good will I be? I mean, no, it's not how good will I be, but how good is the understanding and the correlation between the similarities between BW and SAP.
It'll be a great advantage for you, because you already are a warehousing consultant. Usually when you
because I've been into dimensions, models,
when you have already an experience on the frame that we're looking at. Now, it is a warehousing solution, BW is a warehousing solution, HANA is a warehousing solution. The concept will be the same, all right? Just that the underlying architecture is a little different, your interface is a little different, and so that is where you'll have to put in your effort, all right? Concepts-wise, it'll be always an added advantage for you, because you already have the advantage of knowing what warehousing is. Though we cover those topics again, you probably can be a refresher, but it'll definitely be an advantage for you.
Okay. No, I was just thinking, like, would it be different, or would it be, like from
I wouldn't say it'll be
C
the
to
same.
Java? No, it's like from C to Java, wherein it's like a structured code, and Java is again a noob's concept. So they're two completely different things. So that way, I was a bit,
that changing and varying, all right? Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions, guys? Venkat, Sonal, Pramod, Pinay, Ashish, you were silent. Yeah.
We are good.
Okay. Okay, great.
Very much.
So we'll meet again tomorrow at same time. All right.
Okay.
We will look a little further into BW, trying to understand the info objects. We're going to look at practical sessions from tomorrow onwards. We are going to see how to create info areas, info objects. What are info objects? How do they relate to an RDBMS? And what is the basic difference and how tables and all are created within BW? Is this a standard mode of how they're created, or do we have to create? All right. So all these concepts we're going to look at in tomorrow's session. All right,
One request
guys.
was,
Yeah,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
One request is like, is it possible to send us like an agenda or a plan like for next session, and so we'll be ready, or you send us some stuff to read before the class?
All right. Just for these two sessions, we will go on the basic mode, but I will give you the structured way of how we're going to do sessions. We will be sending you even the course content and also the documentation for the course, so that you can follow a pattern of how we're going through the sessions. All right.
Oh, okay.
That will be provided for you. And also you will have server access, and you will also have the exercises available for you. So you could go ahead and go through the exercises. In case you have any trouble, you can either reach me or our technical support.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, it's all is going to be going through the email, right?
Yeah. So
anything on the Skype? I had seen Skype I requested. So I
yeah,
just
the
wanted to
Skype
know.
ID is given. So in case there's any contact, we'll either call you on Skype, or if you're not available there, on your phone number.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. Sure. Sure.
All right, guys. So hope to see all of you in tomorrow's session. We will be looking at the session understanding BW and creating objects, the basic objects in BW. All right. Do not
Yep.
try not to miss any of the sessions initially, because that's where we lay our foundations. Okay. So hope to see you, all of you, in tomorrow's session.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Manu.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have a
Bye.
good day. Yeah. Bye-bye.